Good evening. Welcome to the July 12th, 2021 meeting of the Marshfield Planning Board. The members here tonight are Katie O'Donnell, Fred Monaco, Nick Papastratus, and I'm Mike Biviano, the chair. Absent right now is Kevin Cantwell and Peg Davis, our associate member. Also with us tonight is Greg Guimond, our town planner, and Karen Horn, our assistant town planner. At this time, I'll make a motion that we open tonight's hearing. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Fred?
Fred here. Fred Monaco.
Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Biviano, aye. So tonight's meeting is open. First on the agenda is a continued public hearing for 612 Plain Street, which is DJ Sullivan. Is there someone here representing DJ?
Yes, Mr. Biviano. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent DJ Sullivan Collision Center, Inc., and I'm here with Dan Sullivan. And first, I just want to thank you for your patience with respect to this matter. We had some scheduling conflicts, so we couldn't make the last meeting, and I appreciate the courtesy. You may recall we're seeking to modify a WRPD special permit that was granted in 2019 to accomplish two things. First, we're converting the building to a contractor artist rental bay use. And second, we're seeking approval of the individual contractor operations within the WRPD. Dan's auto body repair business has already been approved and will continue as a grandfathered use. So the principal use of the property will be the contractor artist rental bay. And we last met on, it seems so long ago, May 10th of 2021. And there are a number of changes that we've made since then to address many of the board's concerns. And I've summarized those in a June 2nd, 2021 letter, which responded to an email from the town planner. And I'm just going to summarize it quickly. First, the tenant Lumberjacks is vacating Unit 8 and its exterior storage, where you may have seen that there's large piles of wood debris. Their unit will be taken over by Massey Builders, which will then occupy Units 8 and 9. Second, and this is more important, Roth Builders, which is also known as Plymouth Bay Marine and Fiberglass, is changing its business. So they will not be performing boat repairs. They're only seeking approval for new boat construction. So that means that there's no requirement for exterior boat storage or boats storing gas or oil, which I know was a concern of the board. And all of the boats that are presently stored on the site will be removed if they have not been removed already. And in fact, all of the tenants have been requested to remove their boats. You may recall that some of our tenants had their personal boats stored on the property, and we've asked that they all be removed. Roth Builders manufactures new fiberglass hulls. So they are proposing to store unfinished fiberglass shells outside of the unit. But again, these don't contain any gases or oils or hazardous materials. They're simply fiberglass shells. You may remember that to address concerns regarding the exterior boat storage, we had an area shown with a containment berm that created some concerns. And so we will be eliminating that since there's really no need for that. And all of this needs to be reflected on an updated site plan, which we recognize. I believe that the town planner would like to see some additional items on that site plan. And so it sounds like we're likely looking at a continuance this evening. I just got a request from the town planner regarding additional information that's required. I was going to suggest that a final site plan be a condition of approval, but if we need to provide that plan prior to closing the public hearing, we're willing to do that. Since then, the Marshfield Fire Department has inspected the building, and in particular, the Roth Builders operation. They made certain recommendations which have been implemented, and that work has been completed. We've provided to you the fire alarm and sprinkler system report that evidences that additional work. And we also received a letter from Deputy Chief Corbo certifying that the existing operations, including Roth Builders, meets applicable fire code. Additionally, the board wanted additional information from Roth regarding its operations. And so Roth hired John W. Furr Associates, a safety and training consultant, to come in and provide hazardous waste and other safety compliance training. And we provided you with those training certificates, an updated emergency action plan, hazardous communication plan, as well as MSDS sheets for the materials that will be used. And again, we're talking about small quantities of resins that are kept by Roth Builders in a small fireproof container, which has been inspected and approved by the fire department. And in the materials, I noted that when the resins are being used in operations, they're kept in a separate plastic tub for secondary containment to eliminate any risk that this resin material would escape the unit and somehow get into the groundwater. We were asked.
Adam, could I interrupt for one moment? Kevin Cantwell is now joined. We've had a couple other people come in as well. Thank you, Adam.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And you asked additional information regarding Dan's operation. We had previously provided that information in connection with Dan's permitting, but we also provided that again, and in summary, Dan's operation uses small quantities of water-based paints and solvents, and his operations have been previously reviewed and conditioned as part of that WRPD. So I know that I think Mr. Guimond had some additional requests for information, but that's all of the new information that we presented in our attempt to answer as many of these questions as possible. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and again, to hear what additional information you require. Thank you.
Greg, do you have any comments right now?
So I've sent Adam an email earlier this evening, and it was basically I had talked to Ed Eichner about monitoring wells to set up for future monitoring of any hazardous leaks or anything on the site, but it would also cover the site from in case there is spills from another site in the area. It would show that this property wasn't where the leaks came from or the source came from, which would, I think, assist the applicant in the future as well. So Ed is going to get back to us on some more details on the monitoring wells. It sounds like the typical DEP requirements are 3 wells to groundwater. And we were thinking of tests twice a year. It may in the future, I think the board could consider going down to once a year for that. I thought, Adam, when we had walked the site, there appeared to be a couple of areas where the parking lot did not have a berm, or there was some holes in the pavement and stuff. So we're just checking to see what the status of the pavement is around the building on that one. DJ's raised his hand. Go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, if I may, I know there is one monitoring well in the back of the lot already from the, I think it was because of the cleaning company down the street.
Exactly.
And,
which is why we want to make sure that we get monitoring wells around. So I think Ed may ask for 2 more.
If we can add that as a contingency, that'd be fine. Okay. The pavement has been repaired. That one spot that we did see that sinkhole.
Yep.
I think as far as the berms go, all the pavement does drain towards the the drains. There's nothing that overflows the edges, so I don't really see a need for the berms. Plus, with the plowing, I think they would just get ruined anyways to add berms.
So I'll check with Pat, but I just wanted to bring up that would be something that we would look at.
Okay.
And then on the hazardous materials and stuff, DJ, we hadn't gotten complete data sheets. I know Karen has been working with Marjorie all day on this. On
We
the
do-
amounts, what we have to show is that you're under 25 gallons for both you and Chris.
Yep.
On the building, in order to comply.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem. And we did provide all those sheets, but you know, I believe you might have received them, but it would be today that you would have got them.
And Karen may be able to update us. I
Yeah.
know she and Marjorie have been working on it because there were missing sheets in them on some of the chemicals and stuff.
Yeah, that would be my bad, because I know they were so long. I thought you only needed like the first 3 pages, but they're all included now.
Right. And I would note that we also provided those in 2019 when you were reviewing Dan's operations. So, you know, we're happy to provide them again, but they were already reviewed and determined to be compliant when you addressed his use.
Actually, I thought it was a condition of our decision last time to get the data sheets. But again,
We provided them during the course of the hearing, so.
we're getting here. You know, we're almost there. Karen, was there anything else that I'm forgetting?
No, and I mean, so the last I checked, we didn't have the full sheet, but I could have missed a last email
Okay.
on that.
So on our side, Mike, we're getting very close to being able to wrap this up. The board can condition these things if the board wanted to close the public hearing. On the site plan, one of the other things, sorry, was the new bay. They've created a new bay in the front in the glassed-in area, and it wasn't identified what that bay was going to be used for or anything yet. So that was one other piece. So it's kind of,
Great.
this one, it's getting to the point where the board can start considering how they would like to proceed, either close the public hearing and have everything done through conditions, or wait one more meeting, get that revised site plan, and try to wrap up the rest of these things prior to closing.
If
Greg, I think the other thing is there's the updated site plan, but we also needed the interior layout as part of the emergency response plan. And that's also something we've been trying to get.
Okay, and that shows where the hazardous materials are in the building, et cetera, with their amounts. And it would show the different users in the building and what the layout is.
Right. So just to be clear, we did provide a site plan. I believe it's revised as of May 5, 2021, that shows the interior layout of the units, including the identification of the tenants, and I believe also included Bay 1, which is the new South Shore glass storage spaces. The one thing we don't have on that plan is you wanted the location of the storage room, and for Roth Builders, it's simply a fire closet. I believe Dan had hand drawn that on a version of this plan, and we sent it over today, but we'll put that on the final plan. But that revision has all of the units identified with their internal dividers, as well as the identity of the tenants. And as I mentioned, we'll have to change out lumberjack, Massey Builders for the lumberjack space.
Well, the emergency response plan needs a little more detail than that, like the sink locations, the fire extinguisher locations, and the storage of the chemicals within that. So I don't think we have that extensive detail yet.
Yeah, and this is consistent with what we did in 2019, the level of detail for that operation. So, I mean, I'm going to respectfully suggest that there's no need to put a sink identified in the space, but I'll defer to the board on that.
Chris has raised his hand.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Good, Chris.
So attachment 1B on an email that was sent via DJ through us. I didn't really follow. It got a little complicated there where I didn't know if you were asking about Roth Builders for that information or the building as a whole. But just to confirm, we do have that. I have that in front of us here with, with a legend on it, where the fire extinguishers are, the pull station, restroom, safety data sheets, all included within that legend.
Okay, and we did see that you had the 55-gallon drum wheeled containment system and the exhaust fan upgrades and stuff.
Correct.
That might have been a different email, but we did get that email as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Greg, was there anything for Pat to weigh in on at all, or?
I think Pat was good, but I'll let
Okay.
him speak.
Yeah, no, I didn't have anything further on this one.
Okay. Anything from any of the members on the board? So I'm leaning toward Greg, closing the public hearing and, doing it with conditions of what they still need to get us. You seem like you're good with that, Greg?
So long as we get them before you guys sign it, I guess, sure.
Okay. Well, we won't sign it till we get them.
Yeah. So why don't we close the hearing, let them have time to get us the information together. I'll draft a decision and we can go from there.
Okay.
If I may,
Sure, go ahead.
the only thing that I see would be an issue as far as getting done before would be the wells. I'm sure that's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
test wells.
I mean, on
I
the
have no
test
problem.
wells, we can condition that has to be done by a certain date.
All right, perfect. All right, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, is there any members of the public here that'd like to say anything? Okay, and just once again, anyone on the board?
No, I think I'm in agreement. I think we're getting there. I think it sounds like it's just information gathering and making sure that everything's checked off at this point. But I'm glad to see that it seems like we're getting close to the end here.
Okay, sounds good. So at this time, I'll make a motion to close tonight's public hearing. Is there a second?
Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Kevin? Kevin's muted.
Kevin Cantwell, yes.
Thank you. Fred?
Fred Monaco, yes.
Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And did Peg happen to come in while we were?
I haven't seen her and I don't see anybody in the waiting room.
Okay, and Mike Biviano, aye. So that public hearing is closed, and we'll wait for some more information before we finish up the decision. Thank you, everyone.
All right, and I'll
Thank you
be
so
working
much.
on the draft, Mike.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you again. Good night.
Thank you.
So at this time, we're going to move on to Resource Way, which is a continued public hearing. Who is here for that?
I'm here, Michael.
Okay, hi, Terry. Take it away.
I'll let you go ahead and reopen.
It's continued. Do we have to reopen it, Greg?
It doesn't hurt to make a motion and take a vote.
Okay. I'll make a motion. We continue tonight's public hearing on Resource Way. Is there a second?
Second.
Fred Monaco.
Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Okay, Fred.
Aye, Fred Monaco.
Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Cantwell.
Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Biviano, aye. All right, Terry, go ahead.
Okay. Greg, if you can let me share screen briefly.
Yep. Hold on one second.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to put up one sheet, which will explain the minor changes that we've made from last time through now. Get this to open up and pivot. Okay. Basically, to kind of sum up where we are is that we have closed the process regarding this project with the Conservation Commission. We went back to them a couple of weeks ago, and they had requested a couple of minor changes with respect to the drainage. Basically, because their concern all along has been any stormwater from this project being treated and being enhanced prior to reaching Halda Brook, which they've made known through the proceedings and made known to the board as well. Basically, what we did was we kind of reshaped our forebay and detention basin a little bit to pull it back so that the The basins themselves are actually just outside the 100-foot buffer, down in the lower left corner of the plan that I have up, and the grading would be at the 75-foot setback. Little bit less clearing and grading gets the basins out of the 100-foot buffer. And then they had asked that we kind of truncate our treatment train coming out of the existing basin. We had shown a trap rock, basically a trap rock swale, which right now is just, really, it's not even any kind of a channel. It's just a runoff area that when you have events like this past week, couple of weeks or so, where we've had a lot of rain, you know, you get some minimal overflow out of that existing basin, and it basically pushes the leaf litter around. And so what we felt that was appropriate was to extend that trap rock channel down closer to the wetland line. And after some discussions with the commission, what we came to as a compromise is to do all of that trap rock energy dissipation between the existing basin and where our culvert is going to run under the roadway. And then on the exit side, to put kind of a 2-foot deep spilling basin, if you will, which will also be the location of the outfall from our slightly reshaped detention basin. And that will serve a couple of purposes. It'll get all of that energy dissipation well outside of the 100-foot buffer, and basically serve to kind of intercept any silt and sediment likewise well before we get to the 100-foot buffer. The Conservation Commission was satisfied with that, and they closed the hearing based on that. And then Greg and I sat in on about an hour-long discussion regarding some conditions afterward. And the Conservation Commission has since issued their orders of conditions, which, you know, as of right now, seem acceptable to this project. And they understand that we'll be events going forward with site design of the, you know, now that we've had those discussions, we can undertake site design that we hope will also be to their satisfaction. But that's the only substantial change that we made to the plan in order to satisfy their concerns. And then I believe at this point, we've addressed all of Rod's and Pat's comments in their various reports, and Pat can answer that. And with that, I'm going to step back because that's really the only change we've made.
Thank you. Greg, anything to add?
I'll let Pat go. On our side, we were ready to close the public hearing at the last meeting. So unless Pat has something that I don't realize, we're in good shape on the planning board side.
Pat, anything to add, or are we good?
No, I had issued a letter to the board on June 22nd. There was one comment remaining that Terry took care of. It was a minor thing on the profile, and he took care of that. Sent me the revised plan, so he's addressed all of my comments at this time.
Okay. Anyone from the board have any comments or questions?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. Anyone from the public here for this at all with comments? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go to a motion. Greg, this is a special permit. I don't have the agenda in front of me.
It's just a definitive subdivision. There's no special permit involved.
Okay.
So you can close the public hearing. If you guys want, you could vote approval, and there are no special conditions that we're looking for. At one point, there was some discussion that Conservation Commission wanted us to have a decision, but the point that they were trying to get across or whatever, Terry addressed it on the revised sheet 2 of the subdivision submittal.
Okay, do we have to do that in 2 separate votes?
It's probably cleaner that way.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we close tonight's public hearing for Resource Way. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Kevin? Where'd you go, Kevin?
He's still
He's
muted.
still here, but he's muted.
Fred?
Fred Monaco, aye.
Nick?
Nick Papastratis, aye.
Mike Viviano, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin?
we need you to unmute. Oh, here he goes.
I, Kevin Cantwell.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I will make a motion that we approve the definitive subdivision plan as presented.
Second,
I,
Katie.
Kevin Cantwell.
Oh, Kevin's just jumping in now. Right.
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye.
I, Kevin Cantwell.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Fred?
Aye, Fred Monaco.
I, Kevin.
All right, we got you, Kev. Nick?
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. So that's closed.
I, Kevin Cantwell.
Is this a recording? Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, so the definitive subdivision's passed, it's approved. And thank you, everyone, for that process.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay.
Good night.
Appreciate it. So Greg, it looks like Ace Hardware is up next, but that's just going to be continued again?
Mike Veraki's here in case he wants to say anything, but I believe at the moment we're going to continue.
Okay, Mike, anything to say?
Just that we'd like to continue it to the next meeting if possible.
Okay. What do you have for dates, Greg? Or
So I'm not here on the 26th of July. The next meeting after that is August 9th.
okay. And we're going to continue both of them to that. So I'm going to make a motion. We continue the Ace Hardware WRPD plan and the Ace Hardware. What is that? Is that another subdivision plan?
It's an A&R.
A&R plan. We're going to continue that till August 9th, 21 at 7:05 p.m. Is there a second?
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye. Katie O'Donnell.
Oh boy, here we go, Kevin. Where is he?
Aye, Fred Monaco in the meantime.
Oh, thanks, Fred. Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. I think we might have lost Kevin.
We might have lost Kevin. I don't see him now.
Yeah. All right.
Well, the continuance should be fine with the votes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all set. Continue to August 9th. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Mike. I'm going to make a motion. We approve the minutes of 6/14/21.
Second, Katie O'Donnell, aye. Katie O'Donnell.
Fred.
Aye, Fred Monaco.
Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
And I, Mike Viviano. Go to the zoning changes. Is this a public hearing for the zoning changes, Greg?
No, it's not. It's still board discussion. We have not had an official public hearing on this yet. I was going to have a public meeting on it to discuss it, especially with the residents up in the Seasons and the Highland Green area and Seth Sprague. I didn't know if the board wanted to attend that or they just wanted me to do it, as just a public meeting with the residents on the zoning changes, particularly for that area.
Well, is it going to be on one of our regular agendas?
No, it doesn't have to be. I can just do it as a separate meeting. It's if you guys want to, we're going to have a public hearing anyway.
Sure.
I was trying to get additional comments on the zoning changes prior to submitting it on the warrant.
Okay.
So we have a kind of a tight time frame in order to make that happen.
Yeah, so that's fine if you want to do that outreach meeting and then we can have our official meeting on it afterward.
Okay. So on the zoning changes, we unfortunately added to the original list that I guys have been giving you guys for a while and we've been working on. What I tried to do on the copy that I've provided you tonight or over the weekend or whatever, actually it was this morning, I think you got this version. I highlighted in yellow the additional changes. Give me 1 second, I'll see if I can pull that up. All right, can you see that?
We can.
Okay. So where you see the highlighted yellow is where I've added new language. So that first article is to modify the existing sign bylaw. in two different places. The first one is in the section B, which says two-sided signs shall not exceed 40 square feet and both sides. That is how we've been interpreting the language for a long time, but it never specifically said that. So the thought was, let's get this correct. And what the building commissioner and the planner and the other people in town all think, let's make the language actually match that completely so there's no misinterpretation or misunderstanding. I did add language from the other section on the highway business. So that's for the industrial area. The highway business side had an additional requirement that a single lot occupied by not one more business, whether it's the same structure or not, there shall not be more than one freestanding sign. I took the language from the business district and added it to the industrial district, so they're more closely related and have similar restrictions. I did not touch the height on the industrial. I left it as is. It's a little lower in the commercial, but I figured that it's all right. The next article down, again, just making it clear that it's a two-sided standing sign with the street frontage, and that the 40 square feet is for each side. Not in total, it's 40 square feet on each side. The one thing on this one that I did in addition was I took out, so the other language all says white lights, but in this particular subsection, it said white or blue lights. I figured let's just make them consistent, make them all white lights. So I took out the blue. Blue is also police cars and stuff. So that's the changes on those two. That's language that you guys had not seen previously. The next article is talking about the location of the PMUD and other bylaws in it, and it's to kind of correct and move it over because the Planned Mixed Use Development District is an overlay district that sits on top of the industrial district, and it's through a special permit process. So moving it to section 13 instead of section 11 in the bylaw, section 13 is where all the overlay districts, except for the PMUD, is. So consistency wise, I feel that makes sense to move it to the overlay section of the zoning bylaws. This particular change is just the moving of that PMUD bylaw. There's no changes to the PMUD bylaw as it exists with this transfer into a different section. The next section, or the next change down, would be the creation of an affordable village of attached dwellings. And I've lowered it from 25 to 20% of the total units have to meet the DHCD guidelines and have the resale restrictions to protect affordability. And the reason we have that requirement is so we're working towards our 10% requirement versus just allowing things by right and not getting any credit from DHCD because there's no restrictions on resale. The restrictions on resale is the thing that the state harps on in order to have units count towards our 10% affordable. The next change down, and there's some other changes, there's some language to go with that in the PMD that's a little further down. Things kind of got jumbled up as we were adding things and moving things around. The next one down is a change to the table of use to cover. We had nothing in the PMUD for the large scale mounted solar panels and stuff. So we've added that in, that it's allowed through a special permit in the PMUD. And we put in the little asterisk in there because, again, in the WRPD, it's just the section by special permit that it's in the industrial or industrial district versus the whole town. Because you have a lot of areas in town that are residentially zoned that are in the WRPD. This is not saying that you can do it in those districts through a special permit. The next article down is the changes to the planned mixed-use development. This language has not changed much since the earlier drafts. You can see the old language being taken out as the red strikeout. The new language is in the blue bold. Under number 3, you can see that I've added in the word base again to try to clarify things when we're talking about density and stuff for the some of the units. On the next page down, the new language is, we were originally talking about a larger area for the affordable village. We have met with representatives from Modera. They've made it clear that they're moving forward with a 40B on a portion, the larger portion of the area. So I have reduced the number of units from 115 for the cap to 65 in the PMUD. But I also added a clause in so we didn't have to remove the Modera from the PMUD district, that the 40B process, residential units on here on this under this cap are not influenced or changed. It does not count against this cap, the 40B units. Sorry, I could have probably said that a little clearer. But the purpose is that Bob Galvin had given an opinion that said that he felt that the residential cap in the PMUD had been already used up because of the 40B. And this is to clarify that we're not counting 40B units against the residential cap in the PMUD. We used to have this table with different percentages and land areas and stuff for the different uses. A lot of the PMUD has now been developed, and it's getting much harder to make these things work percentage-wise and stuff. And the mix that we've gotten has kind of made it less necessary to have that kind of language in there. So I was proposing to remove that. Again, the next page was all language that we had talked about in the past. On number 10, you can see the maximum density in the affordable village is 3 units per acre. That's roughly the development density of the Highland Green development that recently went in up at the top of the hill, which is an age-restricted type of use that it's allowed in the PMUD. Again, a little clarification on some of the commercial buildings, et cetera, but no changes on that. Number 20, we did, at one point we had moved up this requirement for the amount of commercial buildings that face it. We dropped that down to 40% versus 60%. Next thing is where we added language on the setbacks and stuff for the affordable village and the ARV development. And then you can see in the yellow, we have some additional language. The purpose of the buffers are to provide visual screens between the residents and from other buildings within the development, as well as outside the development. And it's to try to make it a nicer place where people want to stay versus say apartment buildings or other high density things where you're basically looking right at your neighbors' units in their backyards or whatever. So it's to give it some more screening and stuff. The affordable village, instead of making a map, and we can have a map for display purposes, but I wasn't going to change the zoning map by putting it on as a specific layer. I was just going to reference the number 32, that references all the lots that are affected by the change to allow the affordable village in that area of the PMUD. And then I added a little language. I've been talking about this, but I realized that there was no language in the bylaw that basically said the whole concept for this affordable village is to give the Seasons, the Seth Sprague people, and the Highland Green people kind of a buffer with a lower density closer to them, meaning duplex houses. And then as you go further away from them and closer to Modera, you're going up in your densities to triplexes and fourplexes. So you're kind of stepping up as you go closer to Modera, kind of preparing you for the higher density as you get over to the 40Bs. And I think that's on the fees. Just clarification, this was in other places in the bylaw that the market price at the time should be reviewed and adjusted at the time of the payment that's required. So like Highland Green, their original units were somewhere in the 500s or whatever, or 400s. And then by the time they were selling them at the end, it was like 600. So the money for the fee in lieu went up a little as the units, as they progressed further. In this case, I'm not expecting the fee in lieu of, because we're hoping to have the affordable units in the development itself versus fee in lieu of. We have not created any new units yet with that money. There are funds, actually I should rephrase that, the Veterans Housing did use some of those funds for the creation of those units. And then I just added some language to the explanation of the article, kind of explaining everything that we're trying to do with that particular article. The next article down again is on mixed-use buildings, where they're allowed in what districts, et cetera. The next one down as well is a new definition on mixed-use district. Again, that language has been here for a little while. Next article down is replaces the existing number 7 and saying that the mixed-use buildings are only allowed in the portion of the Water Resource Protection District overlay that's within the PMUD zone. Similar language we've been doing last town meeting, et cetera. We're just continuing to correct things as we notice them in the bylaws. Next article down is to add a new number 9 mixed-use building for B1. So this is something that's been discussed for many years. This is actually the, an attempt to do it is a special permit in the B1 district. And then we have the following, all this language, even though it's not highlighted or blue and stuff, is new. There's a couple of more tweaks. Again, you can see that 4 units down on number 1 and stuff. But basically, we're setting up a process and requirements for the creation of residential units above commercial in the B1 district. At the moment, we're talking about the entire B1 district. We're not going to try to do a subset. There was some initial discussion that we should do it only in the 2 plazas. We had thought about what do we do with that lower Webster Street area, because there is a piece of B1 that goes down into Parsonage Street, just below Parsonage Street. We looked at the B2 at the moment, but that one's going to take a little work because of the requirements in the B2. It's a highway district versus this one has like very little on the way of setbacks, similar to the Brant Rock Village overlay. And there are some different uses in this district. I did add a 6-foot setback for the 3rd floor from the lower 2 floors, again, to try to reduce that visual presence of a very tall, straight building. We're talking 3 stories here. 3 stories has actually always been allowed in the B1 district. And then signage complying with other sections of the bylaw. So, and this is the map showing the entire B1 section that we're considering for this particular bylaw change. It would be a special permit process, and it would be, the planning board would be the special permit granting authority. The next article is on the Brant Rock Village overlay, some tweaking to that. Again, I don't think there was a lot of major changes in this one from the previous language. We do have some in here that 1st floor doesn't have to be 100% commercial, because we had heard comments before when people were looking at possibly doing something in Brant Rock Village overlay. we're just looking for 40% of the first floor to be commercial and stuff. You could use the backs, and typically what we were thinking, similar to the mixed-use buildings in at the marketplace. The back is kind of the residential entrance with their garage and stuff. In this case, because we're in the flood zone, that may not be how it's done, but it's just allowing for some residential use on the first floor, typically for entry and storage, etc. There's been a lot of talk about the walkway and boardwalk when Paul had originally drafted this. Now that we've dropped, I think, 4 feet from what we were originally required, it was up to elevation 16 base flood elevation. I believe it's now elevation 12. You have to step up and went 1 foot for FEMA for commercial projects. But you had to do that previously as well. So this is basically saying that on the walkways and stuff, it's you can be a porch, you can be a deck. Where you have buildings joining, you could join the walkways, but we're not trying to require a continuous boardwalk for the whole length of the Esplanade. I flagged in green the 10-foot setbacks on the front and on that boardwalk and stuff, and a 5-foot setback on the sides. 5 feet if you have 2 separate property owners would be 10 feet total, because it would be 5 feet on each side. 10 foot is what the fire department would like as a minimum in order to get around buildings. I think we're okay, but I flagged it. I just wanted the board to look that over and think about that. The building height, that we went, currently it's 2.5. I'm proposing to let it go to the 3 floors, 35 feet above the FEMA base flood elevation plus the 1 foot, because again, the commercial buildings, because they're mixed use buildings, would have to go up an additional foot. I did add on this one, similar to the other bylaw, a 6-foot setback on the 3rd floor, again, in Brant Rock in particular, because you have a lot of residential houses very close to it. These buildings are going to be elevated, and then you're going to have the 3 floors. So visually, it is going to look very different from the residential houses. And they'll be higher than a lot of the residential houses in the neighborhood. So again, I was trying to lessen that by having that setback to reduce the 3rd floor.
Hey, Greg, can you go back to the boardwalk setback?
Yep.
Does that not fall under the ADA, like egress and accommodations?
They will have to have ADA accommodations. So there will be ramps and stuff. Which is
well, I guess with respect to the setback, weren't we looking to revise that, or was that revised to be a 0 lot line setback for egress?
When I flagged it, Karen and I were looking at it, and in a couple of spots, the sidewalk is on private property. The sidewalk isn't on public property. So. That's why I was questioning on that, does it make sense to have 10 feet? We may be better off at 6 feet or something like that. And then we realized that in some cases, the sidewalk isn't even on the private property. It's, on the public end, it's on the private property itself. So I was thinking 6 feet setback from the front lot line. But we don't have to go there. I thought the 10 feet was a little excessive. 6 feet would still meet your ADA requirement. Peg Davis is coming in.
The eliminating the setback, was that for existing, adding accessibility to existing structures instead of?
No, this would be for new construction if you're coming in for the special permit. So Nick, do you have any other thoughts or?
I guess So you can encroach up to 6 feet from the property line, you're saying. The building setback is greater than that?
Well, actually, under the bylaw, hold on one second, I believe it is, if it's not 0, it's pretty small. Hold on one second. So B4, which is also the Brant Rock Village, is 10 feet currently front yard setback, 5 feet side yard setback, 15 feet rear setback. So I was thinking maybe we should go to 6 feet setback versus the 10.
I see.
Again, I was kind of waiting to see if we got comments from property owners and other people in Brant Rock to say, yeah, we need to do this, or no, it's okay as is. I have a feeling since one property owner owns the majority of the vacant land in the area that's being talked about being redeveloped, they may have some thoughts on this, and they may say, hey, leave it alone, or could we make that smaller?
I'll just throw out there right now, this one, out of all the things that we've discussed, the Brant Rock Village, the idea of increasing residential in a flood zone really gives me pause. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that this is the one that's giving me the most thoughts.
Well, I'm not proposing the increase if the density's already there.
I know,
I'm
but like
trying to tweak it a little.
But like going to the 3 stories and again, I think like the questions that have come up about parking and like increasing kind of the, congestion in the area. I do think about that. So
And we have brought it up when we have met with applicants in that area, that particularly the residential parking. So like parking for the restaurant or shops or something, we're not as concerned because in a storm event, we're not going to be going there. But for those residents, they do need to think about, a resident's not going to be happy if their car is flooded out every time we have a storm. So we have made that clear in the past, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's been taking so long for somebody to do this. I mean, this bylaw itself has been here. Paul had got it in the past, I think like 2 years before I came. So that's been like 8 years ago. So the density, we're not changing. The 2.5 stories, since I got here, we've known that the 2.5 stories was a difficult thing for them, that they really needed the full 3 floors. So we've known about that particular thing for quite a while. I did not add specific language about parking having to be out of the flood zone, though I did take out, so if you look at this section, it's 1.25 parking spaces for each bedroom for all the units, that the parking areas for residential should, should be sited to the rears or the side. I could add language that says, and should be above the base flood elevation, but then you're getting into an even taller building and even harder to get those things to work. I don't know how to do that one, to be honest with you. I did take out the existing language that says that you could count some of your parking spaces if you had public parking within 300 feet. We have multiple businesses down there that are already counting all those public parking spaces in the Esplanade. So I didn't want additional public parking to be supposedly used for, residential parking, et cetera. The residential parking should be addressed on their site. And I think for value, or, for somebody looking to purchase that, having that parking safe is going to be something that a lot of people would be concerned with if they were looking at buying a house there.
Thank
I
you.
did add language
I do think, yeah, thank you for all of that. Also, I apologize. I don't know if anybody else's dogs use Zoom as the time to just like trash their house. So, but, so when
Well, you're not paying
I'm sorry for
attention
turning
to
off
that.
my camera at certain points. So,
you're not paying attention. So I did add specific language about the 10% of the total units had to be affordable versus the old formula type of thing that we've had for inclusionary. In the future, I do want to talk to the board about possibly removing the inclusionary housing bylaw because we haven't used it. The language is very difficult. That needs some work, and we'll get to that another time. So that's the Brant Rock one. I come back with the accessory apartment, but with just some minor tweaks versus some major changes. On it is, and the most significant change is just removing the 3-year waiting clause. So you could have an accessory apartment if you built a new house, you could have it. Or if you built an addition for the accessory apartment, you can have it. You don't have to wait now. That's the major change on this one. There was some, tweaking and stuff, but right here, what used to be number 6, you had a 3-year waiting period. I did do a little tweaking on that, with some of the language in that the parking has to, remain and the open space has to comply. And that the principal and the accessory unit can't be sold or conveyed separately, that it's still, it's the one single family house with an accessory unit in it. So that's kind of the reduced version of the accessory apartment change. I've been working with Andrew and Karen on this and Nancy with the ZBA. The ZBA is starting to get a lot more interest on the accessory apartments. And the biggest thing that they seem to be having difficulties with is that 3-year waiting period. So that's why we came back with that. We really think we should at least have that discussion and see if the board is willing to consider that change.
Greg, I had one question on this. The part where that the special permit terminates upon the sale of the property and then that the new owner has to reapply for a new special permit.
So they understand that they have to have, it's got to be owner occupied.
Okay.
That's the main point. We want to bring people back in so they realize that it is an owner occupied. This is not, you can create a bunch of rental units, absentee landlords.
Mm-hmm.
So Greg, if this was, so with there not being a time limit or a waiting period, essentially, if someone's building a new property, they'd apply for the building permit and a special permit simultaneously, effectively?
Yeah, they could apply at the same time. The idea is now you don't have to, so we had a lot of people that didn't put in a stove or didn't put the stove and the refrigerator in.
Right.
They were finding ways around it anyway. When we originally drafted it, this was not an easy sell at town meeting way back when. And people were they were like, we don't want a bunch of houses built specifically being almost like duplexes and stuff that people were assuming that they automatically get a second unit. But over time, we were averaging maybe 5 accessory apartments a year for the longest time. And in the last year and a half with the COVID and stuff, there has been a significant uptick in people looking for accessory units, et cetera. And it keeps the Board of Appeals is having a really hard time with this 3-year waiting period, figuring out how to work with this. And to be honest, it's basically, to us, the best way to do it is just to remove it if both the planning board and town meetings, so, see okay to do that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with removing the waiting period. We just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So the next article, we had just passed the floodplain zoning last town meeting. And there had been a debate for a little while about special permit language that I kept in from the previous version. And the building department and the zoning board of appeals had asked, can we keep it? It took several years of discussion with, FEMA and MEMA. And last year, because 2 times in a row, the zoning article got pulled back by FEMA. The third time around, MEMA said to us, you know what, you can add that special permit language in if it's for these specific things. The full FEMA review has just recently happened, and they basically sent us a letter saying that we would be in non-conformance unless we remove the clause A, which I have highlighted with the strikeout in red. So in order to stay in the floodplain program and to address FEMA's concern, this article would basically be to remove that language for non-residential structures such as boathouses, boatyards, and structures designed for educational research, the nature of which requires their location in the floodplain. FEMA's District 1 people in Boston were absolutely upset and wants this language removed. We have sent FEMA a letter, meaning the town administrator, the building inspector, and I, saying that we will not permit anything because the floodplain language just took effect on July 6th, that we will not permit anything under this clause until town meeting has the opportunity to correct the bylaw to what FEMA is looking for. So this one, it's one of these last minute things that were put in that we do kind of have to address at this town meeting. And that's pretty much the only change on that one. The rest of the language is fine. That's the one clause that they didn't like. Then something else that happened recently that got Karen and I looking at things is we've decided that we needed to add a definition of the yield plan, which for open space residential and ARAV are things that we require to have shown. So this is a definition on the yield plan. The next article is under the open space residential, clarifying language that we're expecting the density is set by that yield plan, and that yield plan is conforming to the rules and regulations without waivers. Again, clarification. So in the future, if we have any legal complications and stuff, it's clear what the intent was in the bylaw. Again, we're kind of getting rid of that formula language and everything else, and we're basically just saying that yield plan basically shows you what you get. So that's that particular article. And yay, that's it.
That's all.
So those are all the changes for you guys to consider.
Only 26 pages.
Yeah, not much. It's easy.
No, not much. And I know it's a special town meeting. So again, it's kind of, on your side, I get it if you guys want us to, lessen the load, but some of these things we definitely do have to kind of address.
Okay, sounds good. Is there any other comments from the board at all? And is there anyone here from the public?
I mean, Greg, I'd put the ones that have to go in, obviously. We got to get those in because when's the cutoff date for the special? August?
The warrant opens August 9th and closes on the 23rd.
Right.
I mean, one of the ones we don't need, but I have told the Chamber of Commerce and the selectmen, I've told them for a while that we were going to do something with Commerce Way. We were going to do something with the B1, and we were going to do some tweaking and refinement to the Brant Rock Village overlay. So those have been things that we've had requests for a while from both the chambers and some property owners and the selectmen, et cetera. And I did say we would get to them, and we do have drafts. So we have been working on them, and we have been working towards it.
Greg, what is the B1?
The B1 is to allow residential above the commercial. So
Okay.
currently you can't have any residential units in the downtown.
Got it.
In the old days, Feinberg's, before Dunkin' Donuts, we had a doctor's building over here by where the Osco is that was like 3 stories or 4 stories that had residential above it. So in Duca's used to have residential, a couple of residential units above it and stuff. But back in the 70s, they had taken out the residential ability in the downtown. And it's been discussed a number of times whether or not, we want to try it. It would be a special permit, and it would be the planning board. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention, in the Brant Rock Village Overlay District, currently it's a special permit through the Board of Appeals, but in the revised language that I've drafted, it would be a special permit through the planning board. So the planning board would do all the residential above developments in the towns, again, for consistency. So we have kind of the same people looking at that same thing versus having multiple boards trying to do it.
Good.
Anything else from the board members? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess
Karen.
just back to the accessory unit, I definitely would just like to see that one try to go through at this point. I mean, I know we tried to rewrite a lot more than what's being proposed now, but I think the waiting period is where a lot of people were getting hung up on originally. But I guess if anyone else has any comments, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I'm totally fine with removing the waiting period so people can get these built.
No, I'm fine with that, Greg. So an accessory apartment, that counts against the affordable count though, right?
The accessories do not count towards our affordable housing because we do not have any
good.
income
Okay. I thought
or restrictions on them. It's basically we're allowing people hopefully to have the
In-law.
ability for rental at a lower price than what some, the apartments and condos and stuff are currently going for. There is no requirement to have.
Yeah, I understand.
I like how the focus is to keep people who want to stay in town, letting them stay in their homes and with the community that they've grown accustomed to. So I think that if we had to break things up at all, in terms of like going to fall and then keeping anything towards the spring, I could see that happening too. I'd like to see the yield plan language and the accessory apartment and obviously the FEMA. I think that we can make the arguments on all of those, that they're very time sensitive, and that's why they're at fall special town meeting. I wouldn't want for people to say, planning has, 15 articles and fall is only supposed to be for emergencies.
Yeah. Balance it out.
I'm definitely that person sometimes. So if we, but I think that definitely these are things that need to be addressed. And, but if we need to play around with what goes on the fall and what goes on the spring, then that could be a discussion too.
Okay. Anything else, Greg?
On the zoning, no.
Okay. How about the board and staff report?
There were a couple of things, but today was kind of a hectic day. So my note, what I was going to tell you on the board and staff reports, I'm only going to remember one thing, unfortunately. The local rapid response plan that we've been working on with the consultants, They have come up with their choices for what they're going to ask for outside help. I guess this thing, you can get some outside consultant help on 4 subject areas. And after meeting with Karen and I, they're going to go with pedestrian safety improvements for Brant Rock, floodable commercial spaces to give us more information on that, again, specifically for Brant Rock, resilient business assistance, meaning to give our town's business people more information from, like in Boston, in the Seaport, where they have already put in like retrofitting or building new buildings to have contingencies for flooding for the individual buildings, to give us some more information on that. And then the last item is to do a little more looking into the Brant Rock parking, to give us like a Brant Rock parking plan. What was kind of interesting in the public meeting we had at Haddad's was the residents didn't seem to think there was a big parking problem, but the businesses were all convinced that parking was a major issue. So after consulting, talking with the Stantec people, which are the consultants and stuff, we were like, this seems to make sense because we have 2 groups that have like opposite opinions of this. We've heard in the past a lot about parking problems, but when the residents actually came out, we didn't hear a lot of parking problems. It was the business people that are convinced that they're parking problems. So we figured that was a good 4th category to have them review as part of it. Karen, is there anything else that we were needing to talk to them about?
No, I mean, on that grant, they'll be putting together requests to get subject matter experts to help with those things. And then I think the deadline for the whole thing, doesn't it wrap up in September, I think?
The end of August, yeah, early September.
Yeah.
New member of the planning board?
That's right.
Next puppy. Katie and Nick. Zoom puppy people. Maybe you
You're
guys can
missing out,
stay
Mike.
on afterward and introduce each other, please. All right. Anything from anybody on the board at all? Okay. Seeing none, I think we've wrapped everything up. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, Katie O'Donnell. Aye, Katie O'Donnell.
Thank you, Fred.
Aye, Fred Monaco.
Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Cantwell.
Nick.
Nick Papastratus, aye.
Peg.
Peg Davis, aye.
And Mike Viviano, aye. All right, that concludes it for tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.